text slows down each word, like brings you through it. Good job.
Hey everyone.
Hey. So my name is Kenwood Blair. I'm a senior at Central High School in Newport.
And I'm Michael Lederer, a junior at Staples High School here in Westport.
And we're here to introduce Nick Stone. Yeah.
I'm sure you've all heard of her, seeing as she wrote the amazing book,
Dear Martin. Easily one of the best books of 2017.
Her book is written in the form of a journal addressed to Dr. Martin Luther King after Justice, with a Y, has a bad encounter with the police.
But there's just so much to say about Dear Martin. It's so good. So good.
All right, boy. I know you love her book as I do, but I don't think we should talk about. I think we should talk about Nick Stone herself a little bit.
But it's just so good.
Are you reading it right now?
No.
Anyway, Nick Stone was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia.
She graduated from Spelman College and traveled to Israel to live there a few years.
Then she came back to good old America to write full time.
She's also a mother.
Oh, and she also has a new...
Can I see it?
I guess.
She has a new book. It's called Auto and Out. I got it last night. Thank you.
You should all check it out.
And Dear Martin too. Yeah.
And without further ado...
The woman, the myth, the legend. She's also Slytherin. Nick Stone.
Myth, I think, is like probably the best word in all of those. So I just got introduced so that I could introduce, which is the best like cycle of introduction I think ever. Speaking of Dear Martin, in 2015, I sold Dear Martin to this amazing woman who's like sitting here, but I'm not going to call her out. But right after I did that, I sent an email. And in this email, I basically was like, hey, I really like your work, and can you be my best friend? Almost verbatim. And the person that I sent that email to, by some miracle, said yes. But that really is who Jason Reynolds is. He is a man who cares, which sets him apart from a lot of the people that I have interacted with in the children's literature industry. We all know of Jason's award-winning nature. I don't know, I think there might be like one book out of the 9, 10, I think we're at 10, right? No, I'm saying that are out. There are 13 out. 12 out, my bad. Most of them have some kind of seal or sticker on the front of them. But my favorite thing about Jason is that he does not care at all about those things. He is a man who is all about empowering young people. So without further ado, I will introduce my friend and my mentor and my big brother that I low-key hate a little bit because he's so good at what he does, Mr. Jason Reynolds.
Cold out here. It's crazy. Appreciate you, Nick. Thank you to all the young people. Brother Akbar, I caught all of my book references in there. I don't know if y'all caught it. Y'all ain't read enough. He put all the books in that poem. I appreciate that. I hope y'all ain't come for nothing formal, because that ain't really how I do it. So if that's what you came for, now's your chance to leave. Here's the thing, man. I was thinking about this earlier. So this is the first sort of festival that I've been to that actually isn't called the book festival, right? Which is super interesting. It's called the Story Festival, which I think is kind of cool. Congratulations, by the way, on the inaugural Saugatuck StoryFest. So I'm going to tell you guys a story, since that's what it is that we're doing. I'm going to tell you guys a story. I'm going to basically give you all in about 20 minutes, because we don't have a whole lot of time, and I want to make sure I get questions. I'm gonna give you my whole life story from at least most of it from the age of like 6 to 28. Right? We're gonna run through the whole thing, and you'll see why when we get there. Here's the thing: I grew up in Washington D.C., and I was a kid who grew up. You know, we were like ramen noodle babies. You know what I mean? Some of y'all maybe like ramen noodles, maybe you don't. But when we were growing up, ramen noodles was everything. They called. What's up, E? Sorry. We'll get to that. I'll get to her later too. She's in the story. That's good. Ramen noodle babies, right? So we grew up, and like 10 cents back in the day, you could go and get ramen noodles. For all the kids and the young people in the room, or not in the room, but out here, you all know that they now cost a little bit more. But when I was growing up, they cost 10 cents. So my brother and I would walk to the store. We get put $1 on the counter. The man would give us 10 packs of ramen noodles. My brother would say, "Jay, you hold these 5 for dinner." Then he'd take the other 5 and he'd crunch them up in the bag, and we eat them raw like potato chips. We were Kool-Aid kids, right? The kind of kids who you go to the store, you get quarter packs of Kool-Aid. Some of y'all are too young for this. Some of y'all just don't know what I'm talking about. All of this is fine. But we were quarter pack Kool-Aid kids, and that means you go to the store and you got a quarter pack. A quarter pack was a single serving of Kool-Aid. Used to come in these little pouches. Some of us remember this, right? And I would get home, my brother would say, "Jay, go get mom's picture," right? My mother had a picture that every single mother and every single grandmother had. It was light blue, had a white top, and had 4 little lines in the lid, right? We would go get this picture, we would pour the Kool-Aid in the pitcher, then my brother would say, "I'm gonna go get the sugar, and you have one job. Your job is to pour the sugar into the pitcher, but the rule is you can't stop until I tell you to stop," right? And then I would say, "Whatever you say, big bro, whatever you say." He would give me the bag of sugar, he would stand beside me, he would tip the bag, and the sugar would start pouring into the Kool-Aid, and it would pour, and it would pour, and it would pour, and it would pour, and I'd be looking at all this sugar going into the pitcher, and I'd look at my brother, and he's looking at me, but he don't say nothing. So I'm like, all right, whatever, right? And the pitcher and the sugar continues to pour and pour and pour, and then finally I work up the nerve to say, "Hey, big bro, you think maybe that's enough sugar?" And he'd say, "No, a little bit more." And we would put an entire bag of sugar into a single pitcher of Kool-Aid. Some of y'all are like, "That's gross." Some of y'all are like, "Exactly, that's the recipe for Kool-Aid." So much sugar that when you would stir it up, it sounded like sand scraping the sides of it, right? Then we would take the leftover Kool-Aid, we'd take it outside, and we'd give it to all our homegirls, and they would use the rest of it to dye their hair with. And so all the girls in my neighborhood had purple hair, blue hair, red hair, and it was all good until the rain came, and then it'd be Kool-Aid all over their faces and all over their shirts, right? We were ice cream truck babies, right? The kind of kids who grew up with grandparents that you had to go down south to see, and your mama say, "We're going home for the summer." And then you get down there, and your grandma drive a Buick, and a big Buick, and in the back, and behind the passenger seat, she keeps a church fan, and your granddaddy, he drives a Chrysler, and behind his passenger seat, he keeps a road map, and both of them got pieces of Palm that they got from Palm Sunday tucked in the visor, right? We grew up with hustlers, right? We're talking about dope boy fresh is what we used to call it. Nugget jewelry, gold chains, right? Oversized clothing, Gazelle sunglasses and Timberland boots. Michael Jordan sneakers came out and the whole game changed, right? This is the way that we sort of were raised and what we were raised around, but this is also the 1980s. And if you grew up in the 1980s anywhere in this country, especially if you were in a black community or in a poor community, you know that your neighborhood was torn apart by some other things. Drugs took over our communities in terrible, terrible ways, and we had to watch all of our friends and family members get rich and then be robbed of their souls and their spirits and their will and ability to live and make decisions for themselves because the addiction had taken over so many people around us, right? And I had to figure out, and people like me had to figure out how to navigate that space. If you're going to school or coming home from school and you have to figure out how you're gonna get there. If you go to the right, you gotta walk through the hustlers. If you go to the left, you gotta walk through the addicts. And when you get to your house, you gotta deal with the real fact that the addicts and the hustlers live with you. Your mother and father, your brother and sister, your cousins, everybody in your life is either dealing it or doing it. And so I, and kids like me, had to then deal with teachers every day when we went to school who would say things to us like, "Hey, even though you're coming from all of this, the good and the bad and the interesting, we want you to read something like Moby Dick." And of course, kids like us would say, "No." "Well, why not? Why don't you want to read this book?" And we'd say, "What I look like reading a story about a man chasing a whale when I ain't never seen no whale before. I never even seen a boat. But we want you to read this story. It's called To Kill a Mockingbird. And for all the young folks, if you haven't read it, don't worry, it's coming, right? We want you to read To Kill a Mockingbird." And kids like me would say, "I don't want to read this book because I ain't never known nobody like Atticus Finch. Those people don't exist in my neighborhood. We could have used a few Atticus Finches back then. I know a whole lot of Boo Radleys though." Right? We want you to read Of Mice and Men. We want you to read Lord of the Flies. For the young people, if you haven't read Lord of the Flies, just read Hunger Games. And so, there you go. That's how literature works. It is what it is, right? And so I don't want to read Lord of the Flies. What I look like reading a story about these kids who were in a plane crash and are struggling and stranded on an island, and they start hurting each other trying to survive when I live on that island my whole life. When people like me have been growing up on that island for as long as those islands have existed. I'm not interested in reading any books, miss, because for me, why do you want me to engage with literature that does not engage with me? So I make a decision at a very young age that I'm not going to read anything. And I stick to that. I didn't read, I'm sure some of you, if you Google my name, the first thing that's going to pop up in every single thing they use as a tagline is that Jason Reynolds didn't read any books until he was 17 and a half years old. It's true, didn't read any books. So the question remains, how is it possible that a kid who read nothing grew up to write books for young people today? And the answer is rap music. Now here's the thing. It's always fascinating to talk about rap music and sort of intergenerational company, intercultural company, only because I think that everybody has an opinion about this music, but very few of us have lived with it. And so take it from me, somebody who was raised on this music, that it single-handedly saved my life, and that it single-handedly saved an entire generation of people. Right? And for the young folks, you have to remember that, you have to understand at least that this is back in the day when rap music was still brand new and everybody kept saying that it was only going to last 5 years. They said it was a fad, a trend. You couldn't see it on TV as frequently as you do now. As a matter of fact, there was no internet, by the way. It did not exist. There was no YouTube. Every day we would come home from school and there would be adults on the news and steamrollers rolling over our rap cassette tape saying that rap music was going to be the death of a generation. Imagine that. The same way that we say social media is going to be the death of your generation, Fortnite is going to ruin you, right? It's the same thing. For us, it was rap. They said, oh, rap music is going to be the death. Down with rap. Down with rap. Down with rap. But what they didn't understand was that rap music was truth for some of us. That what the rappers were saying was our stories. They were megaphoning to the entire world that kids like us existed. That no longer could you drive around our neighborhoods and whisper to yourselves that's where they live. That you couldn't peek over the fence anymore and say, look at them over there acting like animals. See, now you had to accept the fact that we were human beings with futures and families and fears and that we wanted the same things that everybody else wanted. And these rappers were going to put it in your face in a way that was so honest and so brash that it made everybody uncomfortable, like the truth always does. And so for kids like me, I gravitated toward the music. I said, you know what, I'm not going to do the book thing. The book thing ain't really working for me. But the music is. So I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get some rap music. Now I have an older brother, and anyone with an older brother or an older sister, you all know these are the pettiest people on earth, right? And it's a weird thing, right? Because you don't understand why they're so upset with you for being born, right? It's like it had nothing to do with me, right? My older brother had all the rap tapes, everything. And he's like, yo, Jay, I'm gonna go ahead and let you know right now to never touch my tapes. You touch my tapes, I'm gonna box you up. Right? You know, we having that kind of conversation. And I'm like, all right, no problem. I'm gonna go get my own rap tapes. I save up my lunch money. I go down to the store. We used to have these, so to the young people, we used to have like music stores. There was like an actual store, you know what I'm saying? So it's weird that we had to explain this, but there were like stores you could go to get just music, right? And so I walk, and music, by the way, came in like, they were physical things, and ask your parents about it. So I go there. I walk down, I got $5 in my pocket. I said, yo, mister, I know rap tapes cost $8 and I only got $5, but you gotta have something on sale. And the man said, yo, kid, I got a few things on sale, but the one thing I think you should get is this rap tape right here. And he held it up, and it was Queen Latifah's Black Rain. Now, for those of you who don't know, first of all of y'all better know who Queen Latifah is, but if you, just so we clear, because she's a part of American history in a lot of ways that I'll get into later. But if you don't know, this particular album, Black Rain, was one of the greatest albums ever made in rap history. It's the album that UNITY is on. To give you some context. If you don't know that song, well, then you got some homework to do when you get home, and I'm talking to you adults, all right? And so, I get the rap tape, I run back to my house, I'm super excited because I have this thing that I think is gonna set me free. I get home and I realize that I have no idea how I'm gonna play this tape. My brother had a Walkman, to the young people in the room. And I guess the best way to describe it is it's like the iPod Zero, just like the OG iPod, right? It's like a rectangular box, you know what I mean? You open it up and you put cassette tapes in it, right? Should we describe what cassette tapes are? We should. Cassette tapes, I'll get to that in 2 seconds. So my brother has a Walkman, right? And my brother's not home, and any of y'all who have older brothers or older sisters, you already know what time it is, right? Because when your siblings aren't in there, you can go and roam around. So I go in this room, and you know how it goes. It's always the same. You walk in there to get one thing, but then you get in the room and you say to yourself, I mean, I'm already in here. I might as well look around a little bit. So the next thing you know, you're opening up all of his drawers. You're putting on his sneakers. You're putting on his jacket. At some point, you find yourself lying flat on your stomach. You're swapping up under the bed. You're like sweeping your hand like this. You don't know what's under there, but you know something is under there that's not supposed to be under there. And so you're trying to figure out what it is. So the next time we say something funky to you, you can say, you better stop talking to me that way before I go tell Mom what you got in drawer number 2, right? This is the way it all works, right? So eventually I find this Walkman. I run back to my room. I'm so excited. I'm like, yo, I got this Walkman. And now I got to figure out how I'm going to open up my cassette tape. Young folks, you will never know the struggle of opening a cassette tape. But let me give you some, let me explain to you what it was like, right? Opening a cassette tape back then, it was sort of like when y'all go to the store and you get a new pair of scissors and it comes in that weird plastic case, you know what I'm talking about? And next thing you know, you at home with your mother's kitchen knife, you know what I'm saying? And you sawing it, right? That's what it was with cassette tapes, right? Now eventually 45 minutes go by and I'm sweating and I finally get my cassette tape open and I pull it out and I put my Queen Latifah tape in the Walkman and I put my headphones on and I push play and Queen Latifah starts rapping and then I pull out what used to be called the liner notes. And for those, the adults were like, yes. We all remember this. For the young people, liner notes were basically little it's like a pamphlet that came with every single album. You pull it out, it's this big, you unfold it, it's this long. And print it on this piece of paper with the lyrics to every single song. Every single album you bought came with all the lyrics, every single word. So Queen Latifah starts rapping and I start reading along. She's rapping, I'm reading, she's rapping, I'm reading. And when she's done rapping, I go back and I read those lyrics all over again and I realize at like 9 or 10 years old that Queen Latifah was writing poetry and that Queen Latifah and Tupac and Biggie, Jay-Z and Nas and Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh and Big Daddy Kane and KRS-One and MC Lyte and Salt and Pepper and all these people that were our heroes, that they weren't the end of a generation. They weren't going to ruin a generation. What they were actually doing, and what no adult, no coach, no counselor, no teacher ever said to us, is that they were actually 16-year-old geniuses, genius poets, shifting the way that we thought about ourselves. And that their words on that page look exactly like Maya Angelou's words on the page, but nobody said it. But now I know. So I make a decision. I say, you know what, when I get older, I'm not going to do the reading thing, but when I get older, I think I'm going to grow up and just go ahead and be Queen Latifah. So I go outside and I tell all my friends the news. And I had figured out the meaning of my life and everything. So I go outside and, you know, I grew up at a time where if you were a male in a neighborhood like mine, you had to pick which Michael you were going to be, right? Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Michael Tyson. Some of y'all know who Michael Tyson is. Those were the 3, right? And so I go outside and I got my homeboy and he's like dribbling the invisible basketball. And for the young people, y'all all know this dude who dribbles the invisible basketball. He dunking on you at the lockers, right? We all know this cat, right? And he outside and I'm like, what's up, man? And he like, yo, Jay, when I get older, son, I'm gonna be Michael Jackson. Michael Jordan. I'm gonna be lights out and killing them. You know what I mean? The Bulls all day. I'm like, all right, whatever. You ain't never even seen them play basketball. You don't think, it's like, I don't even know if you can really play the sport, but you always dribbling the invisible ball, right? Then you got the dancing friend. Everybody got the dancing friend. That's not a new thing. We had the dancing friend when we were kids. I grew up in the age of Michael Jackson. We all wanted to moonwalk. We all wanted to do everything he did, right? Same thing with your generation. I want you to know, young people, that your teachers are really, really, really concerned about you when they're teaching a lesson in class, and out of the corner of their eye, they see you in the corner in the back of the room and you're doing some strange dance move and they trying to figure out if you're having a seizure and that they should stop. I just want you to know, because it happens all the time, right? And then you have the tough guy, and when I grew up, the tough guy came in 2 sizes, big and small, right? And the big tough guy wasn't really a tough guy, but we just let him live, and the small tough guy was out of his mind. That's the way we grew up. So I go outside and I say, yo, I know you want to be Michael Jordan, I know you want to be Michael Jackson, and I know you want to be Mike Tyson, but when I get older, guess who I'm going to be? And they're looking at me like, bro, we ain't got no more Mikes, so we don't know who you going to be, right? And I'm like, don't need to be no Mike. When I get older, I'm going to be Queen Latifah. And they're like, bro, what, right? But I stuck to the script. I started writing what I used to call these Queen Latifah poems, and I wrote these poems every single day. I got to middle school and my family fell apart. My father disappeared, and I'm writing these poems. These Queen Latifah poems are gonna save my life. I get to high school and my friends are disappearing. Gun violence, gang violence, drunk driving, and I'm writing these poems, and Queen Latifah is gonna save my life. My mother is dealing with depression, and they say she got cancer and she might not make it, but it's all good because I got these poems. My brother is dealing with addiction, and they saying that he might not make it, but it's okay because I got these poems. And police officers are giving us the blues, and don't nobody seem to care, but it's okay because I got these poems. And then eventually I graduate from high school, a mediocre student at best because I wasn't reading any books, and I get to college lucky lucky to get there, and I'm so happy to be there because my mother only had one dream for her children, and that's that one of us get a college degree, and now I have an opportunity to get a college degree, and the only problem is I've not read anything. I am unprepared. And the first class you take is English 101. So I take the class, and I fail it miserably. And I remember calling my mother, because this is what you do when you mess up, right? You gotta call your mother. You gotta and some of y'all have already done this, where you make a mistake, you let me call my mother, and you gotta feel her out. You gotta see all right, let me see what's happening. So she answers the phone, hello, and you what you doing? Right? And every mother in here has had that, you're like, uh-oh, right? Oh, nothing, sitting here watching TV, what's up? And I'm like, oh, you had a good day or whatever, you're trying to feel out, let me see what this is, let me take her temperature, right? And she's like, what's happening? What's going on? And I say, well, look, I just, there are two things I got to tell you real quick. And you always say real quick so that you have the excuse to get off the phone, right? And I don't got a lot of time. I just got to tell you these two things real quick, and then I got to go. Right? The first thing is my English teacher that I've been telling you about all this time, she a hater. The second thing I got to tell you is that my report card, which we call transcripts in college, is going to come to the house, and when it comes to the house, you're going to open it up, even though it ain't going to have your name on it, but you don't never mind your business anyway, so you're going to open it up, and when you open it up, you're going to see some things, and one of the things you're going to see is going to look a little bit like an F, but I don't want you to think about it like an F. I want you to think about it like an opportunity for your son to do better in school, right? And of course, my mother is like, don't play with me, right? I fast forward to the next semester, I have to take the class all over again. I walk into the class, I take the class, and I fail the class twice. This is very important for you all to know because I don't want you to think that I've been this way, right? Instead, I want you to think he been this way. Right? I've always been this person. I failed the class twice, and the reason why is because I was unprepared. I didn't take care of my business when I was your age. I didn't read. How was I going to pass the class? This time I go to the teacher and I say, yo, miss, can I have a word with you? Young people, take it from me. Any conversation that begins with, can I have a word with you, is not going to go well. Know that as you go forth in life, right? And so I'm like, can I have a word with you? She steps outside. I'm like, look, I'm just going to go ahead and be honest with you because my mama say honesty is the best policy, and I feel like you deserve honesty. So here's the truth. The truth is, man, I don't really like you like that, and I know you don't like me, and I don't want to take this class a third time, and I know you don't want me in this class a third time, so I feel like we should come to some kind of compromise. And she said, now remember, I'm 17, by the way. And she said, all right, well, let me tell you the truth. The truth is that you're absolutely right. I don't like you, and I don't ever want to see you again. And then she gives me a passing grade. Now, to the young people, I know you're probably thinking to yourself, what? She gave you a passing grade? I need to start talking to my teachers this way. No, don't do that. What I'd rather you take from that is, trust me, there is no such thing as a favor when it comes to your education. There will be moments where you think there are, and when you think there are, be skeptical. There is no such thing as a favor when it comes to your education. There are no shortcuts. There are no cutting corners. Never ever trust anyone who does anything like that, because what you think is a hookup is actually a setup, because what she was doing was pushing me on to the next class, and what the next class was Shakespeare. And you're talking to a person who hadn't read any books. So I get in class, Shakespeare, I raise my hand, I'm like, yo, mister, I just feel like I shouldn't have to take this class. And the teacher's like, and why is that? I say, because I've already fulfilled my foreign language requirements, and Shakespeare, clearly Shakespeare doesn't speak any, he's not speaking English. I only know how to speak English, it's the only language I got. And the teacher's like, no, he is speaking English. I'm like, I know you're a teacher, you're supposed to be smart or whatever, but I've been speaking English my whole life, and I ain't never sounded like Shakespeare, right? But I like this guy because I felt like if he understood Shakespeare, then he must be a genius, and if he's a genius, then clearly he has to know that I'm a genius too. This is what I'm thinking, 17-year-old Jason. So I walk up to him and I say, yo, mister, Shakespeare, he all right, but wait till you get a load of these Queen Latifah poems I've been writing over the last 10 years. And the teacher's like, all right, I'll check out your poems. I give him the poems, I'm like, you're welcome, right? A week later, he sends me an email. This is back in the day, young people, when email and the internet was brand new, and it took about 45 minutes to get online, and it sounded like the computer was going to explode, and like, right? It was a whole thing, right? I checked the email, and it says, dear Jason, I read your poems, and I think your poetry is terrible. And I remember looking at the computer screen and being like, wow, apparently this school only hires haters. I should call my older brother, tell him he could be a college professor. Now, fast forward a couple years. Now, I do meet a teacher who changes my life, and I want to make this clear. I did have a teacher named Gene Jarrett, who basically was the man who got me to read. And he basically said, look, you're going to fail college, you're going to fail out of school. And so I want you to read the first 5 pages of this book. If you like it, keep reading. If you don't, put it down. there was a book called Black Boy by Richard Wright. And on the second page of this book, for those of you who've read it, Richard Wright, who was young at the time, sets the curtains on fire and burns his mother's house down. And when I read that, I was like, yo, this is what I'm talking about, right? And now I'm like, I just didn't want to be bored. So I'm like, yo, this is good. So I go back and I read all the books that I was supposed to read when I was younger, right? So I read To Kill a Mockingbird, Lord of the Flies, Of Mice and Men, A Lesson Before Dying, all the books that we were supposed to be reading when I was your age. And it turns out most of them are actually pretty good. Who knew, right? And that was graduation day, and I'm graduating from college. I'm sitting on stage. I was a mediocre college student as well, just so we're clear. I did not do that well. Everybody had their honors and whatever draped all over their hats and this there. I'm sitting there with all black. Right? No decorations on me, right? But I'm excited because I'm graduating. My family's in the room, and I come from one of them families where like you always gonna know when they're in the room, and they are in the room, right? And I'm sitting there, and the guy who's giving a speech, he says, if you are getting a degree in English, you will be a teacher, you might even be a lawyer, but what you probably won't ever be is a writer. And I'm sitting on stage like, wow. Poor guy, he don't even know he's standing right next to Queen Latifah. That's crazy. Poor man. So I get off stage and I walk over to my mother and I say, yo, I know you need me because she was sick with cancer still. I know you need me. I know her family needs me, but I gotta go. Because I gotta prove that man that I'm never gonna see again wrong. And she said, and where you going? I said, I'm going to Brooklyn, New York. She said, why Brooklyn, New York? I said, rap music. That's all I knew. My favorite rappers came from Brooklyn, New York. Jay-Z and Biggie and Busta Rhymes and all these people that I grew up loving. And so I moved right to their neighborhood. Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. I have no money, I have no job, I have no plan. And 6 months later, in a story that is way too long to tell you all, I ended up landing a big-time publishing contract with HarperCollins. I was 21 years old. I know some of you are like, wait a minute, I thought When I Was the Greatest was his first book. Yeah, I've been around for a while, right? This is my 15th year in this industry. And so here I am, 21-year-old Jason, and I got a big old book deal. I can't believe it. Now, this is the part of the story where adults get a little uncomfortable, especially when there are young people in the room, but I'm going to tell you all this anyway because I would have wished somebody would have told me this when I was your age. What I did not know, because no one ever told me this, is that I didn't know you could do this for a living. Nobody ever said this could be an opportunity for me to make a living for myself. So I wasn't expecting there to be any money involved. Until a check came. And I want to make it clear. I opened it up. And it was just like on the movies with the Holy Grail box, you know what I'm talking about? You open it up and the angels start singing, the light coming out of it, right? And it's like, all right, you get a little tear come out of your eye. It was just like that. And then I did at 21 what any of you would do. I called my friends, and I was like, yo, y'all wanna go shopping? My mother would never buy us Jordans because they cost $75 back in the day, and she said that was too much money for sneakers. So if you got a pair, when you get home, you make sure you thank your parents if they paid for it. $75. She was like, I'm not spending that on no sneakers. So I went to the mall and I bought all the shoes that we couldn't get. Bought everything, did all the things that you see on TV when people do this. I bought all the stuff. Then I called my friends and I said, yo, we're going to dinner tonight. They said, where are we going? I said, we're going to Red Lobster. Because when I was growing up, Red Lobster was the fanciest restaurant. And we thought that was like, it was it, right? And I'm like, not only are we going to Red Lobster, we're going to eat lobster. Because we had never had lobster before because we always thought lobster was rich people food. Lobster came out on a plate. I'm sitting there looking at it like, bro, it's supposed to, it got a shell on it. Like, how am I supposed to eat it, right? They're like, no, you got to take it out the shell. Then I took it out the shell, took a bite. I'm like, bro, it don't even taste like nothing. Like, rich people don't like flavor, right? And then you got to dip it in the butter. Then I put it in the butter, took another bite and said, yo, it don't taste like butter. Like, we could have just ordered butter and we just saved a bunch of money, right? But I buy all this food for all my friends. I pay for it. Then I call my mother and I said, Ma, I love you so much. And now I'm going to take care of your bills because you gave up everything for me and my siblings and I'm going to look out for you. My mother said, first of all, and anybody in here with a first of all mother knows, you're like, come on, I'm trying to tell you good news. And you, first of all, I know my children, is this legal money, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's legal money. Not only is it legal money, this that Latifah money. I told you we were gonna be rich and famous, now we rich and famous. I'm gonna take care of you. She said, okay, pay my bills. Looking back on it now, I kind of like, why did you let me do that? Like, that's crazy, right? But I pay all my mother's bills and all the money is gone and the publishing company calls me later on and they're like, yo, we're excited, your publishing date is gonna be 2 years out. And I'm like, what you mean? They're like, yeah, your book will be published too, because that's how it works, 2 years out. And I'm like, I heard you the first time, but like, what you mean? They're like, yo, we gave you the check that's supposed to hold you over. And I'm like, 2 years? Because it lasted me about 2 weeks, right? Back to the peanut butter and the ramen noodles, back to the Kool-Aid. I got 40 different ways to make spaghetti, right? Tuna fish, right? I became a middle school teacher, high school teacher, worked in radio. I can give you a whole list of things that I had to do to make ends meet. And finally, my book comes out, and when the book comes out, so does the recession. The recession hits the exact same moment. I bottom out, I lose my home, I'm sleeping in the car, all this craziness is going on, and I gotta start from square one, right? Fast forward 3 or 4 years, I've quit writing. I moved back to New York after leaving for a quick moment. I take a job in a clothing store, which is where I plan to work for the rest of my life. And one day, my dear friend Christopher Myers, whose father was the great Walter Dean Myers, walked in the store that I was working in, and he said, "Jason, what are you working on?" And I said, "I'm not writing anything. I quit writing because they didn't care about what I had to say as a child, and apparently they don't care about what I had to say as an adult because my book flopped. Nobody bought it. Like 6 people. I think my mama bought like 4 copies at the time." And he says, "Man, you spent your whole life trying to be Queen Latifah. I wonder what it would be like if you tried to be yourself. Put your story on a page. Write it down as honest and as earnestly as you can. Write it in your language, just as it happened to you. Tell the stories of your friends and your family and your neighborhood. Let's see what happens." And I stood at that cash register and I scribbled down the story of my older brother and the things that we used to do when we were kids. And it became a book called When I Was the Greatest. Then after that, I wrote a book about what it felt like to lose so many of my friends and family members at a young age. And it became a book called The Boy in the Black Suit. Later on, I would write a story about my friend Matthew Carter, who lived up the block from me, whose father tried to shoot him when he was 9 years old, and they ran and they hid in a convenience store for 2 days, and it became a story called Ghost. I can go on and on and on. These are all my stories coming from my life, my friends, my family, my testimony. And so even though I'm supposed to come here and tell you all to read and write, and by the way, young people, please, for your own sakes, read and write. It is more important, since this is StoryFest, it is more important for me to let you know that even though I want you to love my stories, it is far, far, far more important that you love your own. It is the most expensive thing you have. Your story is the most valuable thing that you have. And even though we're going to look outside, you're going to look outside of yourselves at moments to try to figure out how to take somebody else's story and smash it up against yours. The truth of the matter is that the greatest gift that you could give yourself is yourself. And no teacher, no parent, no coach, and no counselor ever told me that when I was a kid. If they had, maybe I would have been able to do this a little earlier. Maybe I would have figured out other ways to exact my confidence instead of figuring out how to be overconfident and overcompensating in negative ways. This is far more important than just literacy when it comes to the words on the page. This is about emotional literacy. This is what we're actually trying to get you all and myself and the adults in the space to understand. Okay? Are we good? All right. I don't know how much time I have because there's no clock. I don't know what's happening. But if there's some time for questions, I'll definitely take your questions. Just put your hands in the air. You can ask about any of the books, any of my stuff. You can ask about my personal business. There's always a kid who's like, "Yo, you rich, mister?" You can ask. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you the truth. Oh, did I ever go back to see the teacher in college? So the funny thing is, after Boy in the Black Suit, I think, one of the books came out, I got a call from the University of Maryland, which is where I went to school. They said, "We'd love for you to come back and talk to the English department." And I was like, absolutely. I remember calling my mother, like, "Mom, guess what? They want me to come back and talk to the English department." My mother said, "Jason, look, I just want to make sure, like, are you going to be the bigger person, And I told her, I said, "Come on, you didn't raise the bigger person." And I went in there and I let them know how I felt. Not because, and they were great, not because I had something to prove, but because they still have students. The truth is that if I wasn't some cocky little kid who was like, nah, who felt like he knew something that everybody else ain't know, they could have totally ruined my life, right? And they, all teachers in the room, by the way, this isn't just about them, it's about all of us who work in education. It is okay for you to be critical, but not unless you are also encouraging. And that's something that we all should kind of hold with us. Yeah, young man, you gotta yell it out, all right? Will I write any other superhero books unless it's about you? Absolutely not, man. I don't think so. You know what? I won't say absolutely not. The true answer is I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. If I could write any other superhero book, what would you want it to be? Another Miles Morales book? We'll see. We'll see. Anybody else? Yeah. Pass it up. We all got this community, right? Do I ever get lost in the writing? In a good way or in a bad way? Do I get lost in the writing in a good way? Absolutely. Do I get lost in the writing in a bad way? I don't know if it's ever bad. It may not be very good, right? Like the words might be trash, right? I might be like, this is whatever I'm writing right now is horrible. But I think it's still good because once I was just telling somebody that, my man Devin, I was just telling Devin this. Once you have it on the page, you can always go back and kind of fix it, right? You can't fix what don't exist. So all writing is good writing. But the editing process is really where you have to shine, right? But all writing is good for the process. You gotta be working it out. That's like asking a ball player, do you ever get tired of shooting jumpers, or is there ever a moment when you're shooting jumpers and you're just tired of shooting jumpers? It's like, no, just doing the action of shooting the jumper, whether it goes in or out, is good for me. And it's exercise, Yeah. Oh, so instead of Shakespeare or To Kill a Mockingbird, what books do I think you should be reading? First of all, I actually do think you should be reading Shakespeare. So I want to make that clear. I actually think Shakespeare is, but the truth is I actually think Shakespeare is not overrated. I think Shakespeare actually is a genius. I just think we have to do a better job at teaching Shakespeare. And I also think we have to make sure that we stop over-intellectualizing Shakespeare as if he would have wanted his work to be over-intellectualized. He was writing work for us. He was writing work for normal people who just wanted to laugh and poke fun at people in power. He was doing, you know what's based on Shakespeare? Empire. It's based on King Lear, the whole show. Right? Like they literally take a line of King Lear and build every episode around that. Now, if I would have known that when I was a kid, I would have understood Shakespeare better, right? So read Shakespeare. But also I think that we should be reading, I mean, Nick was up here. There are a lot of us in this industry who are doing some incredible work. I also think that every single teacher in here should be teaching Desmond Ward. And I think, honestly, every single teacher on the planet should be teaching Desmond Ward's work because it has teenage protagonists, but it is a complex, sophisticated narrative that you can couple with other classics. So for instance, Salvage the Bones is basically a retelling of the myth of Medea. Pew! Right? And you can do both of those things. One is about a 15-year-old black girl in Mississippi, and somehow she ties that to the myth of Medea. You can figure it, so we can do both, right? And so I would pick books like that. Comparative lit is the way. Yeah, I know we got it.
Yeah, this is gonna be the last question.
This is gonna be the last question.
What's your favorite current rapper at the moment? Are you having someone you enjoy listening to right now?
What's my favorite current rapper at the moment? You know what? I'm not a person who thinks that the new rap music is bad. I think a lot of it is actually pretty good. It's different, but I think a lot of it's pretty good. I love Kendrick and Cole. I love who else? I mean, look, we could go with this. Could be a long conversation. But what I will say though is this: for the young people in the room who, if you're offended because we keep saying that your version of rap music is trash, right? Don't be offended. Take it as a compliment. The truth is that your version of rap music is yours. I'm not supposed to like it. If I like it, if we all like your version of rap music, you're doing something wrong. Right? My brother thought that Biggie and Jay-Z were disgraceful because he said that Run DMC and Public Enemy was hip-hop. My uncle said Run DMC and Public Enemy was disgraceful because he believed that Kool Moe Dee was hip-hop. My grandfather said Kool Moe Dee that ain't music. James Brown is music, right? Like, this is the way it's supposed to work. If we like it, you're not pushing it hard enough, all right? I hope you all have had a good time. I appreciate you. Peace.